Hit me.
All right, let's get this interview going. So, the first question, I guess I would have had a little while ago, and many other people have, is do you have to be an excellent, technical writer to make a lot of money as a copywriter? Do
No.
you have to? No.
No. As a writer,
Mhm.
I'm infinitely better than I was 6 months ago, a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So we always expand our writing ability, but it's not based on becoming a better writer. It's based on becoming a better question asker.
Mhm.
So anybody can ask the right questions, but it comes down to having the passion and desire to actually sit down and learn stuff so that you know things inside and out intimately. And that's what makes us better, more effective copywriters,
Mhm.
is distilling everything down to the essence of the conversation, whether that's mechanism, new cause, um, offer, the actual offer. There are so many ways to agitate that.
So you're saying
But
you
you
can.
can't agitate that if you can't ask the right questions. And therefore you will struggle as a writer, and therefore associate it as being a bad writer.
Hmm. I was going to ask. So you asking the right question. You ask the right questions because you need to get to the right appeal, the right story these people are
Exactly.
having.
It's not my job to contrive emotion. Instead, I need to know the emotion and stories that people are already telling so that I can tap into it,
Hmm.
connect with it, make them raise their hands, inspire them to raise their hands, to see themselves in whatever messaging, and take that momentum and do something with it.
Mm. So like so media good, even perhaps mediocre copy with the right message will be excellent copy.
I've
Will
seen copywriters come down the pike and after 10 years, still struggle to make $1,000 a month writing copy. And I've seen copywriters after 1 year get close to retiring because of their front and back ends. And they didn't come into it as masterful writers, but instead, I would say very curious people who were so interested and so committed to what they were doing that they made sure they knew everything about it,
mm,
and consistently and constantly asked more questions because everything is always changing. The
mm,
dynamics of how we can write is always changing. They're always changing.
mm.
So we have
That's
to keep up with that. And that's a matter, again, of asking the right questions
mm. A quick
and knowing the stories that people are telling so we know what questions to keep asking.
I guess before I go into the next one, so how developing the skill of asking the right questions. A part of it is just one focusing, getting really deep into whatever you're doing the research, doing the work. Is that it, or is there another way to go about it? That
Everything starts with the mechanism.
mm,
So if I understand how something works for me, then I understand how it works for you. Now, if I know what you want, I can agitate what you want negatively or positively, either or both. And there's lots of elements to achieve that: new discovery, new cause, deeper reasons, core reasons why something exists that nobody else has talked about.
mm,
And I won't be able to know what those things are until I understand why it works for me, why it works for you, why it works for anybody, so that I can melt away the objections and resistance and disbelief that everybody is going to have when they see whatever offer that we're going to put in front of them.
mm, mm.
It's
There's many.
inevitable that most people have tried virtually everything, or they tell themselves that, to get rid of whatever they have or to get whatever they want.
Mm. How as far as so the mechanism, how would one distill the mechanism for when you start a project? How do you get to the core of that mechanism and bring it out? Is it a matter of
So there's it works in every space, first of all.
mm,
So you and I work a lot in we're doing a lot in supplements, but
hmm
let's try something like self-development.
right?
let's talk about like binaural tones. I've done a lot with binaural tones, like headphones. So
Right.
when I wear binaural tones and I listen to theta beats, so theta is where all of my conditioning, the subconscious, is stored like a computer.
Mm.
And it gives me direct access to all of those stories, all of that programming, all of that conditioning. I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do that. All of that is stored there. And 97% of our conscious attention is driven by the subconscious, which means we're very unaware of why we do most things. So the more that we take out of the subconscious and bring it into the conscious and acknowledge it, we can dissolve it and tell new stories. So I created a program based on what I did as a little boy when I was overcoming challenges, health, financial, otherwise. And I explained the mechanism. So the binaural tones play slightly different frequencies in each side of the ear, which forces the corpus callosum, the thick band of fibers that connect the left and right side of the brain, to fire. I then cite it with Albert Einstein. His corpus callosum fibers were connected at very interesting places on the left and right hemispheres of the brain. They were very well endowed as well. In other words, there were a lot of neurons firing together, conveying this information powerfully. So he had the ability to have whole brain synchronization. He was able to access part of his brain that we don't, but we can when we use binaural tones. So now the mechanism is I can access through audio, through simple frequency, the same frequencies that our brain functions on, delta, alpha, delta, theta, beta, alpha, gamma. Beta is where we are most of the time. It's very, the busy mind, the monkey mind, thinking, anxious, anxiety, negative bias, that's bad. It's just constantly working like that, and it's very exhausting. That's what keeps us stuck in sympathetic stress, aging, stuck in stories, giving our power away to circumstances, all those things. So when I was able to delineate that all of that is coming from the inside projected out because of the story we're telling, but what if we can have access to that story, dissolve it, and tell a new story? Well, we can, and all it takes is a simple pair of headphones. And then I can explain the mechanism. From that mechanism, I can then position it in health, in finance, in relationships, anything I want. John Asseroff did the Brainathon, the Neuro Gym webinar series, and it was all based on binaural tones. And it was one of the most successful Facebook campaigns, cold campaigns in history, recent history. So a 15-minute manifestation, I created that entire program. It's made millions. It's still making millions 3 or 4 years after launch. And it's all based on the technology that I just described. Another example, my doctor suggests, mechanism. So I was presented with this structure, silver liquid. I didn't know what it was at all. The doctor who invented it explained it to me. The structured alkaline water defeats the biofilm. What prevents and protects candida and bad bacteria and pathogens from being touched by supplementation and medications. So by dissolving that biofilm, we now have access to those cells and pathogens. And then the silver, which is missing its electron, vibrates up against them until they rupture, like popping a balloon. And then we pee them out. So that's the mechanism, and that's how it works for me, for you, and for everybody. Now, because it's a gut-based product, I can position it as I have in yeast infections, UTI, colds and flus, type 2 diabetes, weight loss, the list goes on and on. Correct.
Right. Gotcha. If this mechanism, if this is extremely important and a lot of copywriters aren't using this, what are they doing instead? They're just
guessing. They're trying to make stuff up. They're trying to be clever. They're trying to be creative, but without understanding, knowing, feeling about being in touch with, being empathetically connected with what the people are feeling, the prospects they want to connect with and help. And therefore, they don't get as many people to raise their hands. And when they do, it's lucky because they don't actually know why it's working.
And would you say,
and therefore, how is it duplicatable?
Would you say this is connected to the quality of the client as well? Peter,
Absolutely.
Dr. Peter, Peterson's
If a client comes to you and says, I want you to create a product for type 2 diabetes. We haven't finished the product yet, but here's an outline of what it is. And then you have to make it real, and that's all you have. You're going to make a lot of shit up unless you know how to research for the science, for the substantiation of your claims, of your messaging, of your positioning, and of your mechanism. And if they don't even know what the mechanism is or why their product works, which if they're just developing it, they probably are struggling, then you either need to be involved in helping them get there, or it's going to be a crapshoot.
And helping them get there is an entirely different ballgame.
And you're likely going to have to compromise your integrity massively to make up stuff that people will relate with.
And this is what keeps many freelance copywriters in feast or famine. They're working with clients who don't have a good mechanism, and you have to make shit up.
They're churn and burners. They're just trying to make as much money as quickly as possible and move on to the next project.
And even when they do make money, they're still losing it because the thing dies and all that time.
It dies. They have high chargebacks, returns, refunds because it doesn't work usually. But they make enough where they can, run it and exhaust it until they have something else to run and exhaust.
And so you can't really build a back end deal into this because you wouldn't want to, because there really is no back end.
Correct. Well, there could be, but then, they're churn and burning so quickly, is it really worth your time to put that much energy into it if it's only going to run for months and not at least a year or years?
Right. So then the key for copywriters to break out of that feast or famine is to find quality clients who, one, will have a good product and that you can collaborate with. Two, understand mechanism, new calls, so that when you have this golden goose of an egg, you can utilize it correctly.
Yep. And that the product, the offer, whatever we're selling, actually works.
Yeah.
It's like with somebody who hit me up yesterday. That was one of my first questions. Does your product, does your offer, does it actually work? Do you have substantiation that it works? Oh, we have all these testimonials from all these years. People who reach out to us and tell us their story. Our refund rate, so yes, okay, awesome. Let's have a further conversation.
Where is the best place to find these quality products with quality clients with quality products?
Honestly, cold. Doing our own ads, our own traffic, posting on job boards, posting on bulletin boards, doing organic stuff. That stuff does work, and I've gotten plenty of clients from it. But ultimately, it's by finding people where they're looking and speaking their dog whistle language. So many copywriters make the mistake of positioning their services, their copy, in front of people that you have to educate and convince that copywriting is worth the investment. Whereas there are people who know that their business doesn't exist without copy, and they're simply vetting out the best top copywriter to get their project done so that it'll be effective, that it'll convert, and that person is also committed to scaling it, to stand behind their work. That's what people who have money, who have had successes in the past, are looking for. They're not interested in copywriters that are used to working with churn and burners. They want copywriters that are actually committed to standing behind their product, which gives a lot of copywriters anxiety. I could do 2 revisions. No, you revise until it converts and scales. And if you can't do that quickly, then you're not doing everything that we've talked about for the entirety of this short interview so far.
We've went over the mechanism and how it's been briefly mentioned, how it's connected. Of course, the new cause comes from it. Can you briefly explain why the new cause is so important?
Because everybody's seen everything, and guess what? It's white noise. So when there's a deeper reason, a core reason, for instance, you worked on anxiety, mental health.
Right.
Did you know that your first brain is not the reason why we experience anxiety, emotional ups and downs, sleeplessness, that it's actually the second brain?
Mm.
Hi, I'm Dr. Gordon Pedersen. It's true. The second brain is where our happy chemicals are made and they communicate to the first brain. But if we have damage in the second brain, which is the gut, then it cannot produce the happy chemicals that we want, and it cannot communicate those happy chemicals to our first brain. The results, we're anxious. We're constantly scanning for the worst things that happen to us. The noise in our head is all over the place. We can feel almost schizophrenic. But it's not something that medications you can get from your doctor, prescribed from your doctor, are going to be able to help with. That's just putting a band-aid on the symptoms. The new cause, the real reason why we're experiencing this, is an abundance, an overgrowth of bad bacteria inside of the second brain. We need to eliminate those bad bacteria and restore second brain health in order to have first brain health.
So,
fuck, that was really good.
Oh, it's recorded. I guess. So what's keeping most copywriters like new, mid-tier, poor, or not where they want to be is probably this culture of focusing on the copy itself, becoming a better writer, to either chasing money or trying to get rich, or just trying to not be poor. And three, because they're unaware that, because they're focusing on writing, they're not focusing on
helping people.
Yeah.
It all comes down, the more people you help, the more money you make. And since, everything that we're doing right now is largely on Facebook cold traffic, it needs to be positive. It needs to be reassuring. It needs to be uplifting. It needs to be bright. And so many people are stuck on the problem, agitation, solve model, the AWAI model that is defunct. It's extinct. It's dead. And that's not following, email marketing is dead. No, it's actually dead in the way that it's been done in the past. Now, we can agitate just as easily with hope and inspire, get people attached to a result positively, rather than saying, are you tired of da 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 da? They're sick of it. And if you can substantiate that with a mechanism and new cause,
right,
with a face and voice that is credible, that's real, that's authentic, that's a formula for success. Now, if everybody involved in the creative to get that campaign out there is on the same millionaire mindset, in other words, we're coming from the standpoint of abundance and helping the most people, rather than getting messaging out there that'll get the most money out of people. Money chasers typically don't last. People who ask the right questions, who are interested in helping people the most, who want to connect with them the deepest, the ones that take the time to figure out what the mechanism for why their product works, for the causes that are really at the core, for their suffering, and why everything that they've done hasn't worked. All of that needs to be substantiated, and it needs to be addressed to melt objections and resistance and suspend prospects' disbelief so that they care.
And going back to with helping people, because you're trying to help people, you learn about their stories and whatnot, which forces you to focus on where they're living, where they're at, instead of focusing on the writing. So you're able to connect with them, even though you may not be the excellent A-list like technical writer. It won't matter because you'll be hitting the core issue.
Correct. And you're doing one of the most important things. For every ad dollar invested, for every bit of exposure that any of these campaigns that we're building get, what are we doing?
Yeah. When we're building campaigns,
we're building equity.
A brand, yeah.
Brand equity, brand association. When people have a problem and they think about your solution, that's brand association. When I think of cola and I want satisfaction, most people are going to think of Coke, maybe Pepsi, but they're going to think of some brand. We talked about this before, Doritos, the logo-less
Mm.
commercial. They have so much brand equity that all they need to show is their blue bag with the triangle shape. And everybody knows it's Doritos.
Mm.
And because that association is so strong, by taking the logo off, people thought about Doritos more.
Mm.
That's what we're always trying to develop with every bit of creative that we put out there for any company in any space.
Final question, I think. Mindset wise, let's say someone, new copywriter, so they accept the mechanisms and the new cause that they don't have to be an excellent writer to make a great amount of money and do
Absolutely
well.
not. Again, it's knowing more than anybody else in the room. It's
Mm-hmm.
knowing what questions to ask. You need to know more than the person paying you. You need to know more than everybody else out there so that you can ask the right questions. It's not about being the best writer.
Right.
It's about being the most effective writer. I've seen, again, copywriters at this level, struggle like crazy with their writing. And maybe they're making money and maybe they're not. But usually they're miserable. But then there's people like me that can just poop out copy.
Yeah.
Because I'm so deeply connected with everything. I've been investing my time, energy, passion, effort in discovering deeper and deeper aspects. So I know more questions to ask and I know how to help people better than other copywriters.
Mm.
That's what makes me have financial stability. And I give a fuck. I want to help people. And when I get to work with people who have a budget and who are extremely passionate about helping people, then it's a perfect marriage. And that's how we win. Because they know it's a journey. It's not hitting a grand slam out of the gate.
Mm.
And it's that way now more than ever on cold traffic, Facebook and Google, and YouTube, and Instagram, and Pinterest.
What are a few negative biases of freelance copywriters that pop into your head that you've seen again and again?
There are too many good writers. I'm not good enough. I don't have experience there. They're looking for this kind of experience. By the way, when I decided to be a copywriter, when I went from a product developer and didn't even know what copywriting was to discovering copy, teaching myself, never read a copywriting book, wrote some but never read a copywriting book, then I was able to allow into my life the clients that I wanted. That's what I focused on. I focused on being a beacon of light for the people that I wanted to work with, and it worked. Now, in the beginning, when I looked at a lot of other copywriters' pages, circa 2004, 5, and then maybe over the next 5, 7 years, it would actually bog me down by looking at their stuff. I feel like, oh, wow, oh, that's good. Or, but again, it doesn't matter how many people are out there. I had a former copywriting student post on the Call to Copy the other day that somebody told him that only a handful of copywriters can make a living doing this. The rest of them can't. And it's so fucking wrong. And it's such a defeatist mindset. That copywriter already defeated himself. He's so stuck in scarcity. He won't allow himself to believe that more is possible. Therefore, why should it be? And he's not taking direction.
Gotcha.
He's coming from a very poor mindset, and therefore his copy comes across that way. People who have money do not resonate with that. And I have said that to him so many times, and he doesn't get it. He won't let it go. He's stuck. He's stuck in the poor mindset, and he's going after small fish who don't have the money to pay him and take way too much of his time. The less people pay you, the more work they're going to be. The more people pay you, the less work they're going to be, because they know they're hiring the right person and they give you room to breathe. The people who need the money the fastest are going to be on your back, and they're going to squelch your creativity, and they're not going to even test it properly.
All right. That's all I got, and we got a lot.
Always remember, this is about heuristics. Heuristics is the psychology of storytelling. We're all telling stories. We all speak in the language of stories. The way we connect is by telling stories. Oh my God, I just got 2 shifts taken away from me because of goddamn Jeremy. Hey Beth, you know what your brother Jeremy did? He took my shifts away. We're all speaking in stories. So are you listening as a copywriter to the stories that people are telling so that you can connect with them? How do you find those stories? Go on Amazon, look at reviews, interview people, ask questions, ask more questions, find that information. Oh, more questions. How deep does the rabbit hole go? Let yourself be willing to go through the journey, and then just as you're discovering, unplug. Immerse, 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 immerse. I'm full. Now go play. Don't ever think about it until you are inspired so hard that your body forces you to sit down. And then it'll happen easy. I write full sales letters in 2 hours. I don't overthink it. I know what works. I have the elements and the heuristic flow that I can draw upon and create new ones all the time, mix and match them, so that I know how to make each part of any promo, whether it's an ad, a sales letter, VSL, webinar, a checkout page, upsells, emails, she-mails, it doesn't matter. I know how to make them effective. I know what questions to ask because I know what elements to use in the heuristics, in the story that people are telling, so that I can, use mechanism to get their attention. And then figure out what stories they're telling to keep them reading. One line only exists to get them to the next, whether they're hearing, listening, reading, doesn't matter.
Not including the final one, thanks for elaborating on that. The $1 million bunkers you used to sell to doomsday people. How much money?
Preppers.
How much money do you think you've made for your clients, roughly?
It was over 50 million. In reality, I've made over $300 million in sales from my copy in the last 15 years. Now that competes with a lot of the big names. I don't post that out there because a lot of them are NDA protected and I can't necessarily substantiate it all, but that's the truth. And that makes me worth a lot of money. But I don't prefer to prove what I can do based on what I've done, but based on the performance of right now. And because everything's always changing, what worked doesn't work. So I can't lean on that. And I don't. I should have a bigger ego. I should dress better. I should have more nice stuff. That's not what drives me. What drives me is connection, because that's how I learned everything. And that's why I'm constantly curious. If you're a copywriter and you're constantly curious and you're very passionate about discovering new things, omit the word learning, because learning can prevent us from learning more. We have to, like Yoda said, you must unlearn what you have learned in order to learn more. Well, if you keep discovering new things, then you don't necessarily have to hold on to them. You get to be more nimble, flexible. Let things go through you, take the best bits, let things go through. I use things from 5 years ago that I learned from Perry Belcher, but I don't use things that I learned 6 months ago from blah, blah, blah.